Once the industry's most popular genre, fighting games have since sunk to the bottom of the gaming barrel. Maybe it's because there were so many terrible fighting games released during last generation. Or maybe it's because fighting games are pretty dull unless you have someone to bang knuckles with. Regardless, the Virtua Fighter series has lumbered on, gradually building its clout in smoky Japanese arcades where the genre still thrives. Virtua Fighter 5 is finally upon us, and the 5th iteration of the series brings it to the next generation with stunning visuals. But does it have the gameplay and options to match?
私の強さを見せてやろう。
Most fighting games use story as a setup for why people are trying to kill each other. In Virtua Fighter 5, it's like Sega isn't even trying. There's some jargon about Vanessa being kidnapped to be turned into the final boss character, Doral, but if you only played the game and never read the instruction book, you'd know nothing about it. Toss in some equally confounding verbiage about nefarious weapons-dealing corporations trying to take over the world, and you'll begin to wonder what it could possibly have to do with Hockfield planting his wrestling boots between someone's eyes. To put it lightly, the cinematic presentation here is sorely lacking. It's a good thing for Virtua Fighter 5 that story has very little to do with the enjoyment of a fighting game.
Ha! Take that!
Let's get one thing out of the way first. There's no online play in Virtua Fighter 5. No head-to-head play, no leaderboards, nothing. Sega has said that VF is so reliant on timing that it doesn't want to ruin the experience by taking it online. To us, that sounds like a lame excuse. Sure, you can experience lag when playing any game online, and sure, fighting games are a little more dependent upon timing than other genres. But if Virtua Fighter pros don't like it, they don't have to play. It's as simple as that. Why deprive 90% of your audience of a mode they want to cater to the 10% who may not use it, but probably don't care that it's there? It makes no sense at all, and if you don't have a lot of friends who come over to play games with you, the omission seriously limits the enjoyment you'll get out of Virtua Fighter 5. With that said, you do get a decent amount of the old standbys. There's arcade mode, where you take on a ladder of opponents on your way to facing the world's dumbest end boss ever, Doral. Then there's Versus, which is basically the same thing, except you can't play it solo, but you have control over the factors for each match. And finally, the Dojo option asks you to input various modes in a glorified training session. And you're going to need it because VF5 takes a lot of practice to get the hang of.
I'm no pushover, sweetie.
The final and most robust option is called Quest. Here you create a file and choose a fighter. From there on out, you'll be using the same pugilist, so choose carefully. You can select various arcade locations from a simple map interface and then dive in for some competition. Each arcade is rated based upon the level of competition, so you won't find yourself getting pounded match after match. As you win, you'll unlock various costume pieces that you can use to dress up your fighter for that personal touch, although they're not tied to your character's attributes. You can also win gold for placing in tournaments that again can be used to purchase cosmetic upgrades. The more you win in quest mode, the higher your rank goes, and that's honestly all there is to it. There is a certain satisfaction in watching your fighter go up in rank, or step into the ring in a new set of duds, but for the casual player, the ends do not justify the means.
That wasn't your best shot!
There are 2 new fighters added to the mix this time around. El Blaze is a masked wrestler, so a lot of his moves come from the squared circle. Eileen is an ultra-quick female who spends a lot of time on the ground acting like a monkey. Both characters are extremely well balanced and fit in perfectly with the fabric of the game. There are 16 different rings, but almost all of the fighting takes place in small, perfect squares, where there is no place to hide. It keeps the action ratcheted up, but doesn't allow for a whole lot of strategy beyond the occasional ring out.
Ring out!
Virtua Fighter 5 doesn't exactly pour on the options. Aside from the quest mode, there's very little to see and do, and once you've pimped out a couple of the 17 available characters and alternate costumes and various accessories, the novelty wears thin. At least there are adequate head-to-head options, even if you can't take the game online.
Yeah! Let's talk more action!
Let's face it, all the corny modes and options don't mean a thing if the gameplay isn't solid. This is particularly true with fighting games, where some players count frames of animation to get an advantage. In this respect, Virtua Fighter 5 is peerless.
I got no time for you!
There's simply no deeper, better balanced fighting game available. Best of all, this is accomplished using just 3 buttons: punch, kick, and guard. This is one game where button mashing will get you nowhere. Being competitive takes minimal practice. Once you get the timing for blocking attacks, you'll be able to start working on your combos, and you'll have a lot of work to do. Performing the more impressive moves in the game can literally take a lifetime to master, requiring exact timing and various conditions. If you're the type of person who likes to learn how to pull off every move in a fighting game, Virtua Fighter 5 will last you for years. You can win fights by knocking down your opponent's power meter to nothing, or by knocking them out of the ring. On the default difficulty settings, the computer is a joke. You can generally find 1 or 2 devastating kicks or punches and use them over and over on your way to victory. But then, you'll run into a fighter that likes to block every single attack, no matter how varied they are, and you'll simply have to take your lumps until you eke out a victory. Mastering Virtua Fighter 5 is one of the more rewarding feats in all of gaming. Unlike its contemporaries, a rookie will never defeat a skilled player, no matter how frantically the buttons are pounding. There are no fireballs, no fatalities, and no garbage. It's about as realistic as a fighting game can be without becoming a snore, and a true test of skill. If you're the type of player who would rather mash the buttons and pull off incredible moves like in Tekken or Soul Calibur, Virtua Fighter 5 is definitely not for you. But if you enjoy really digging into a fighting system and mastering its intricacies, you'll be astounded at the depth on display here. The lack of online play is a huge disappointment, and it's definitely light on the modes. But Virtua Fighter 5 is still the gold standard that other fighting games will be trying to top for years to come.
未熟者めが